What's up, y'all? We're back again for the continuation of our interview with Dusty Davis here in the studio. We're going to continue to sort of capture his chronological biography and his life story. And I'm going to try to ask him more questions about sort of what it was like for him to have a profession with Athletes in Action, a Christian organization in Eugene, Oregon in the late 80s. He's married, had 3 children, was in the midst of an athletic department that was allowing him and some student athletes to share about Jesus. And you were talking a little bit about at the conclusion of the first episode, a little bit about what that looked like. So Dusty, keep walking us through like what that looked like day to day, or was it in the evenings? What was it like to be in the midst of being married, having 3 small children, trying to be focused on engaging college athletes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was such an intense time
Okay.
because, at that time of life, your early 30s, everything's coming together as a big crescendo. The kids, marriage, ministry was growing like crazy, financial stress, trying to peak as an athlete.
Yeah.
Just all those things are at a big crescendo at the same time. And I think that Mary Lou and she's a real go-getter, and she was seeing women athletes come to Christ and just be hungry to grow. We had small groups with, she had volleyball and softball and tennis, track and field. We had so many spinning plates. We had students that had gotten in fights with their roommates would come and live with us, in our tiny little house. It was on a dirt alleyway near campus, and little kids crying. I mean, it was kind of a zoo. Yeah, it was chaos.
Yes.
And I think we had to go back to our dependence on the Lord to carry us through a lot, because we saw him doing amazing things with growing the ministry. But then often, you were just kind of worn out at the end of each day, not a lot of time to spend with each other, to foster romance and to still be together as a team. A lot of giving out and not as much taking back in.
Yeah, for sure.
And so,
What if there's a listener or a viewer that's sort of at that spot right now in their own life? What are a couple things that you could advise them, counsel them, encourage them, speak to them based upon being on the other side of that now?
right.
That
Yeah.
you just described that they're in right now.
Yeah. I think that some of our performance mentality, whether it was from our athletic backgrounds or whatever, that wanting to excel, wanting to, go the extra mile, it carried over into our perspective of ministry too, and even in our relationship. And so you start to divorce priority of our personal relationship with God, our personal relationship with each other as a married couple, from not being as spiritual as being on campus leading a small group.
Yep.
Or going to do an evangelism with a contact or something like that. And so, man, you can get into a bad way that you're kind of working yourself to death. And I think even our ministry at the time prioritized statistics. You're supposed to give like, how many people did you reach out to this week? And how many people were in your small groups? And how many people were,
Yep.
came to the large group meeting? And that's not all bad. I'm down for accountability. But if you're kind of one of those driven people, it can get off kilter and you can lose sight of that. And so my advice to someone that's in the throes of ministry, work, raising money, kids, family life is to, hey, don't over spiritualize some things to the detriment of,
Yeah, right on.
the value of time with your spouse and value of time pouring into your kids. And those things are very valuable.
Yeah, man. As you were answering my question, I was thinking to myself, how even I, right now in my life currently today, as I'm listening to you, feel this pressure to prioritize work or profession over making the investment, like you said, in your marriage or fathering, or at the stage that you're in as grandfathering, and it's like sometimes I think that in Christianity, maybe somebody has not explained well enough pragmatically what it looks like to seek Jesus and his kingdom, his righteousness, what it looks like to father well, what it looks like to husband well. And I know that me and you both have had some private conversations off the air. Now we're sort of having one on the air about we're trying to make ourselves available to give counsel to that. And that's why I was asking you the question is like, man, if what I'm trying to say, this balancing thing, I don't know how to balance things well. Is like you're saying, like you're either all in or you're standing up on the pedals, going all right. It's very difficult to stay in the pelotons, to stay in the pack, right, and be carried along. But I'm serious. Like there has to be to give some forethought. Yeah. To okay, do I do my job well, or do I not do my job well and father well? Do I not make another phone call? Do I not something like this? Do I not take on some overtime hour so I can attend my daughter's ballet recital? Right?
Yep.
Those sometimes we don't know.
At the height of my athletic career racing bikes, I quit. Because I finally heard from my wife, you can't do it all right now. And you've experienced glory. You've had the medals hung around your neck. You've stood on the top part of the podium. I know you can keep going and you can elongate your career, but we're kind of dying over here. You can't do ministry at this level, your athletic career at this level, be a dad at this level, all at the same time, raise support at this level. And so I heard her. Thank the Lord. And I was like, all right, I'll step away. And we still did adventurous stuff. We took the kids camping and climbing and, we had a great time, but I pivoted away from just me going on the long training rides. And
Did you pivot out of that, dude, for out of respect for your wife, or why was there a willingness to concede to the wishes of your wife?
It wasn't just her. I think I knew in my heart, I think God had been saying, yeah, you could keep this up, but there's going to be loss. You can't work on campus all day and then swing home, hop on your bike for 2.5 hours, swing back into dinner, then go lead a Bible study at night and have little kids at home. No, it's just, and I think I already had an audience with the cyclists, with whoever. They didn't need me to still show up I didn't need credibility anymore.
Dusty,
So it was such a great decision.
Yeah, right on. Try to describe a little bit more for the audience and maybe even for me. When Christians, when followers of Jesus, when we say we had that tugging at our heart, or we feel like God is calling us or God is speaking to us, can you recall sort of or walk us through like pragmatically what that looks like? Do you feel like God was like literally, speaking to you audibly? Was there just a sensing? Like when you said God had sort of been working on you previously, in addition to what your wife had said, well, what did that look like? Help us try to understand how God talks to us sometimes.
Yeah. Well, definitely he speaks from the page up, the word of God. And now, is there a verse in the Bible that says, Dusty, quit bike racing, and be a better dad and be a better husband? No, but the principles are there. And, loving your wife and taking care of your family and responsibility and, your sport, your hobby. Awesome. Enjoy those things, but are you taking it so far to the neglect of the responsibility that God's given you. And I think there was that tugging on my heart. I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to over spiritualize it.
Yeah.
I think there were probably times near that breaking point when I went to a race or something, or I was gone for a Saturday and I come home and I realized I'd missed some quality family time, or I was just worn out, or the quality of what I was experiencing with the guys. I came home and I knew there was some guilt, or there was some like,
Yep.
hey, you're not
Yep.
using your time to the wisest.
And I think that's what I'm alluding to is like, and I think that
Every guy's got that pull, whether it's bass fishing or bowling or Saturday football games or whatever. At some point, as a Christian man that's wanting to walk with God, you go, I was probably going a little too many Saturdays in a row.
yeah, man. And I think the
It's
intention,
not about me anymore.
right. And that's what I was sort of trying to allude to is a little bit of this segment is to talk about fathering and husbanding, right? But one of the things that I sort of feel like in my heart right now is, the marks of a man is sometimes a man doing what has to get done, not what he wants to get done, not what we want to do. And I think that a lot of times, at least from my perspective, I often hear about, well, Christian guys have a problem with lust. And that's typically like lusting after naked women or lusting after orgasms or something sexual. But I think a lot of guys lust with the acquisition of too many things, and they're not just hard assets. It's just the activities themselves. It's like being involved in everything, like you're talking about. Like, hey, you can't have 17 plates spinning at the same time and spin all of them well. Maybe you're just lusting for too much activity. And that's why I was asking you the question is, how does a younger guy or a middle-aged guy or even a guy at my age know when to stop spinning a plate or let it drop or intentionally take it off the spinner and say, hey, too much is going on.
Right.
I got too much. I want too much going on.
Yeah.
I need to lighten the load. I need to shed some of the responsibilities. And the responsibilities that one I've taken on or God has allowed me to take it on, I need to do well. I think guys have a hard time with pragmatically knowing that. And that's why I was trying to allude to earlier. Sometimes you need an older guy to say, hey, listen, I'm on the outside looking in and I ain't got no skin in the game. But you're asking me for my observation. I take off this plate is this plate. So it seems like you can handle this one, this one, this one.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that the listeners.
And we've done that as friends.
Yeah, you have, dude. Yeah, busted my balls many times about it.
Well, we've had some long conversations, and you would throw out, God's made you an idea generator. And so you'll get 16 ideas, and we've talked about ones that I think are really lining up with your mission now that's gotten much more funneled into something really stronger. But you've had ideas, and I've gone, that one might be a little out there. That was going to cost a lot, or
it sucks to hear that. That's my point I'm trying to say. Like, it sucks to have somebody that you respect, like, nah, Jim, I don't think so. Like, bro, that sucks. Like, I don't want to hear no. So you have this decision to say, either I love and respect Dusty, and I'm going to be submissive and surrender and subjective or concede or whatever the word is, right? To say, you know what, I trust Dusty in his counsel of me because he's looking out what's best for me. He's not trying to be a dick about it. It's just freaking telling the truth about it. So I know it's a little bit of a pivot off, but like, it's just real conversation, right?
Yeah.
So
I think it goes back to having men in your life that will speak into things. But if you're married, it's listening to your wife.
Exactly.
And she will tell you, this plate doesn't need to be on.
Yeah.
And this one marginal.
Yep.
And, this one needs a good spin.
Yeah.
And so, if you're married, that's really pivotal to submit yourself and some of your schedule and you might have to axe some of the things that you really enjoy. I knew on your podcast with Jeff Struger, he talked about he was so involved. He had no hobbies, nothing outside of, being a ranger, reaching out to the military, running the church, and his 5 kids, There was no other extra.
Yeah.
He didn't go bass fishing or hunting or
Yeah.
anything else, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the intentionality. I know that Men Build Men has a charge where we say to plan intentionally. And I think part of that is sometimes I think we might not find that by ourselves. We might need to invite other men into our lives. We definitely need to pray about it. We definitely need to be willing to listen to the Spirit of God, how God speaks us through the page of Scripture, through our wives, through other men. And we might not fully understand it. So we might have to say, hey, I think this is what's going on, and be willing to get some additional counsel. So you stop spinning the professional cycling plate in your life. At that moment, do you feel like you intentionally say, okay, well, that plate's off. Now I can be a better husband, or I can be a better father? Did you remember any of that specific thinking of, I'm going to be intentional in these areas, Dusty?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah.
And walk us through like what that may have looked like when you say, okay, I'm going to now no longer train these 2 hours. What am I going to do with those 2 hours?
Yeah. Relieve my wife with little kids that are needy and hungry, and, coach a little boy's soccer team, or take a little girl to dance, or just being available.
Right on.
Yeah.
What do you feel like some of those pivotal times when you had young children, what are some lessons that you can recall that you might be willing to share with some of the viewers? Like walk them through them and counsel them up on like, hey, this is what I learned. This is what you should be. This is something you want to consider.
Yeah. Yeah. We decided to just create our own family culture and not just do something because everybody else in the neighborhood's going to do it. And so there were times when we didn't sign our kids up for team sports, and other times when we did. But we tried to leave our schedule open to do enough family things that not every weekend was just absorbed at the ballpark. And there were seasons for that, and we wanted our kids to glean from learning to be on a team and cooperate and fail and walk through those kind of things. And then other seasons where you're like, hey, we're just going to go ride dirt bikes together, or we're going to go on camping trips, or we're going to do stuff as a family. And I think that was kind of pivotal for us. And it's created something that my best friends in the world are now my kids and my family. And every time we have a free day off or whatever, it's all about going to do stuff with our family.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of buddies that I do things with, but my first calls are to my kids and my wife. And we sit down and we plan things together, and, we have a blast. We do.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I know that. And I participate in some of those activities, and I try to keep up
Yeah.
with some of those activities. Like intentionally planning for your family. I think for me, when I look at that, I'm like, you have a better understanding of what matters. People's souls, yes. But sometimes our often greatest responsibility. I thought, let me sort of make a comment, and then maybe you can correct me even on air. But I feel like God permits us to be here on this earth, and he doesn't need us to do anything. But I find it interesting, like the two things that he does need us to do, allow us to do, is when we become husbands and we become fathers. I feel like that's the only time in the space that no one else can handle those responsibilities except us individually. There's nobody else on earth that can be the husband of Mary Lou. There's nobody else on earth that can be the father of y'all's children except you. It's like, bro, that's it. Those two responsibilities, that's all that God needs you to do.
And now granddad.
And then not that grandfather, right? But other than that, God can find somebody else to fulfill his plans. But it's like this great opportunity. I thought to myself, man, like that's it. Just do those things well, And yes, there's a lot of tension between you got to have money, you got to have support, you want to be successful in your vocation, you want you all those things. But man, if you don't husband well and you don't father well,
Mhm. Well, that's why I love the mission that you've been called to and your team of guys here. And because it's teaching guys skills to be a great dad, husband, father, family member, whether it's learning how to grill or change a tire or plow a field or, whatever it is, learning how to drive well, just all those skills that really play a role that are vacant in a lot of bringing guys up these days.
and don't you think, like Dusty, like our being willing to listen to God's prompting, whether that comes in the conviction of your heart, listening to the conviction of God's word through our wives, maybe through another person, right? Don't you think that there has to be a willingness to respond to that prompting, right? I mean, you could be like, no, I'm not giving up this.
Right.
And don't you think there are some guys that make that unfortunate decision?
And some get divorced
And
and some lose the love of their kids, when they're given into their hobby or sport or their work or whatever, when he gets first dibs.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you're a little bit older than me, and like maybe it's not entirely fair for ask you to make this observation, but like in your 60s now, sort of looking back a little bit, you've met a lot of people. You've probably seen a lot of people in Christianity. You've probably seen people get divorced and so forth. Like, it's unfortunate to sit back and watch guys make some decisions. And what I'm trying to ask, sort of a broad question is, what are some of the larger mistakes, or can you boil down to a couple mistakes that you've observed in the lives of other men that you might say, hey, to some of these listeners or viewers, like, hey, looking back, I've seen dudes make these 3 mistakes and it's had bad effects. What are some of those things that you might call out?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the core thing is your personal relationship with God. And so I have seen a lot of guys that call it the drift. And the drift is that you still show up at church, you still, might pray before your meals. You have a semblance of walking with God or Christianity, of things that are around you and, what you started. But then the little subtle drift goes away. Maybe like your personal time with the Lord kind of gets closed out because you just open up your phone and start reading the news, and you get down the rabbit trail of the current events or politics or whatever, or you drift, you lose accountability to some other guys, and you become an island.
Yep.
You drift in your loving your wife and you'll just kind of get on autopilot and it's all just about what's for dinner and that's about it. And you watch separate shows in separate rooms. I mean, there's just that drift can go along with Christian men
Yep.
that don't even know it's happening almost, and so that would be one of my warnings. And I think that drift happens when you just kind of get on autopilot and you get a little stale and you get a little comfortable in pleasing yourself and living in your own skin and doing what makes you happy. And you've lost that edge of like, man, I want to date my wife and I want to walk with the Lord and I want to up my prayer time instead of squeezing it out. And I want to be going for it, and I want to be doing evangelism. That's not over because I'm shifting out of ministry or whatever.
Exactly.
I think it's a tenderness to hear God's heart
Right on.
and be wary of the drift,
Yeah.
the slow frog in the kettle drift,
I know that for me, one of the things that I most respect about you is, early in our relationship, you busted my balls about what I eat. And you were one of the few men in my life that actually like got in my face and basically told me like what you eat is not acceptable, and you change what you eat.
I don't even remember that.
Oh yeah,
Were you hitting the fast food between what y'all just?
I was just fat, you know, and you were like,
Well, I think you were going for the Iron Man goal, right?
no, it was
No.
you were my boss at this point, and you're just like, basically you're a fat ass, and you need to change it, but. But I was like, oh, then I also saw you like eating like 2 walnuts, and I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. But one of the things that I do respect about you is you viewed, and you still do, because we've had some conversation, and we can have some conversation. We might not get to it, viewers, but Dusty knows nutrition and fueling at the highest level. We talk about the physiology of our human anatomy and what it looks like, blood, oxygen. It's good stuff. Really, really, really good stuff. But this is not what I'm commenting about. What I'm commenting about is how I viewed your restraint of understanding I need to restrain what I could participate in because I'm going to make the decision that's needed because it better prepares myself to continue. Healthiness is a choice. And one thing that I'm asking you to share, if you're willing, is how do you view restraint? And not everybody might have your level of discipline. Because I view restraint as discipline different. I view restraint as the foundation of discipline. Your ability to restrain yourself from 60 grams of sugar in a Coca-Cola drink might lay another brick of disciplined intake, and it might position you to do something athletically. My point is, how does a man begin to get a hold of his lack of restraint and how those things affect other areas of his life? Because I feel like what I'm trying to say to you is you've been able to restrain your eating, and that has carried over to how you restrained other things in your life that I continue to admire you for. So how does he do that?
It's a good question. Some of it, I think, is just kind of like lifetime habits at this juncture. You know, like, I don't know. I'm a thin dude. I don't have a propensity to eat an extra large, thick crust pizza.
Yeah.
It doesn't appeal to me.
Great.
I don't like the feeling of being stuffed.
Yeah.
I don't want to undereat either, you know. I don't lose weight and be.
But don't you think, to your point, don't you think that a large stuffed crust pizza is not appealing to you because you just said you spent a lifetime of making the right choice previously, right? And just like you were cautioning some of our listeners of not drifting, that's the point I'm trying to make. You're a man that hasn't drifted. You're the man that had conviction. I'm going to take one small step. I'm going to not eat this. And over a lifetime, now the allure of what may be appealing no longer does. And it permits you to freaking raise it. 63 and be whipping the tails of some younger people, right? The point I'm trying to illustrate is a lifetime of right choices positions you later in your life for successes. You may have given up professional bike racing in the late 30s, but 30 some years later, you're whooping the ass of younger people because you restrained what you ate and what you've not consumed as a result of that, Dusty. And I think like, hey man, like not choosing to climb mountains, but to invest in your children or to take your children to climb mountains leaves a longer lasting legacy for those behind you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Compounding interest.
Yeah.
Over time.
Yeah. Over time.
Yeah.
You know, and your small choices. And, maybe it would have changed if you were riding to Cape Canaveral and you were crushing honey bun, not PBJ, PBJ, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, you know?
At some point, when calories are out, you need calories in. And yeah. Yeah, you know, since we're old enough to have seen a non-technological world and now a very technological world, it's fun to embrace, you know, everything from a smartwatch to a heart rate monitor to a nutritional breakdown to training methods. You know, I'm just now on the cusp of learning so much, just trying to take in different health stuff. What is it for somebody in their 60s that wants to compete at a high level still? What I need to be doing about rest and recovery and all those things. So I'm trying to learn a lot in that whole genre right now.
Looking back the last 30 or 40 years as an athlete, talk to us about rest and sleep, and like look at your early years of parenting and activity and work, right? And competing, and talk to us about the decision of sleep. Would you do things differently?
Yes.
And well, and what would you do?
Ever let Mary Lou go get the kid up at 2 a.m. instead of me? No, I mean, I have a 35-year-old son right now who has 3 kids, twin boys that are 8 months old and a 2.5-year-old girl. And he looks a little hollow-eyed, most of the day, and he's tired, because they're just needy right now, and they get sick and they wake up and everything. And part of it's just part of that process of life, but I look back to the biblical precedent of God resting on the seventh day. And as an athlete, take a day off and fully rest and rest your body and let it recover and recharge. Maybe you need 2 days off of not doing stuff if you're going really hard, So, and especially at my age now, recovery is important. I did a race yesterday morning and I realized that I'd kind of trained right through it. And I was overtrained and I didn't do as well as I wanted to. And I think I was overtrained and I hadn't rested, and I stayed on my feet and was too active and worked out too hard during the week. I didn't set my schedule very well. I wasn't smart and listened to my body, and went into the race tired. My body didn't respond as well. So,
did you win?
I did. I won for all the old guys.
But that wasn't your goal?
I didn't beat the 17-year-olds this time.
That's what we were afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I want the podium.
It's freaking awesome, bro.
Yeah.
Rest. I think that's important. I think that's something.
It's a biblical mandate.
Yeah, it's something that I have a hard time too with, and the reason I'm not just asking the question to facilitate the podcasting conversation, but being sincere. I feel the same pressure as anybody to try to produce, and it's like we've been around agriculture enough, and we know, having worked it and participated in agricultural environments, you can't force fruit. You just can't. You can. I think humanity tries to genetically alter it, and those are some additional comments and questions for another time, right? But I think the premise is you're just simply not going to rush the production of fruit. I'm not going to rush the production of the days to germination. You're just not. That's what God does. And I feel the pressure for myself to rush the fruit, the fruit of your labor. I feel like I've sensed the pressure to rush the correction of our children. You see a young man that you're pouring out. You see a young man that may or may not be participating in Milliman or the community, and you try to rebuke or correct and straighten out his behavior, and it doesn't seem like the pivot comes fast enough. And I feel that pressure, man. And sometimes it's really hard to restrain ourselves and wait in God's rest. Yeah. And I think that's a real pressure that a lot of dudes face,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think men that are built like you too, that are tip of the spear, let's go get it, let's charge the hill, let's get it done. You don't have a lot of patience for people that are jumping up and running with you, So, but that's a good self-awareness now that you have at 51 that you probably didn't have at 31 and 41.
Right.
So
Yeah, I was actually thinking about like a little bit about that, about the fruit of the spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. I think like I was thinking about that. I think that's one of the
there's not a lot of go adjectives right there, really, are there?
no, they're not. It's like you like passive and you're like, nah, that's not. It's like I was trying to say, like you I have I see the marks and characteristics in men. And those are the things that we want to specifically call out that I'm trying to do a good job as a facilitator of this conversation is calling out the marks and characteristics that I admire, respect, and affirm in you. Me and you are trying to call the characteristics out of Jesus that we respect, that we want to share with other people, right? But we're also as men trying to say like, yeah, like that gentleness thing, that's not something that we conjure up. And I think does come in time. I think that's a fruit of the spirit that you demonstrate better than me. Cause I'm more down with the whole harsh correction, ass whooping thing than I am in the gentleness.
But God uses both of us,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
use all room for all in the kingdom.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Right. So this good time. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, mash that red button, subscribe, share, like, notify, do that administrative part for Newton Films, our producer. It's a good dude. So help him out. Thanks. All right, back to the story, Dusty. A little bit about parenting, 80s, your life. You give up racing. Your children are growing. You're in Eugene. At some point, you guys sort of say, hey, we're going to move back to Birmingham. We're going to sort of make a change in our life. We're going to dip out of Oregon and move back. What initiated y'all's family moving back to Birmingham?
Yeah, good question. I was a regional director for the sports ministry at the time, and I was overseeing all the guys that were chaplains and working up and down the West Coast, Arizona to Washington State, the California schools, and loving it. Really enjoyed the staff that I was able to work with out there. And I think having been working at just the University of Oregon, as I began to grow in leadership, I think it met a need for me to kind of broaden my sphere of influence and to reach out to guys that were just battling out on campus with tough administrations or, just all the bumps that you come up against. So I was enjoying that a lot while still having campus ministry, and it was growing like crazy. We're seeing kids at Oregon come to the Lord. We're seeing multiplication. So the kids that have come to the Lord now leading their teammates to Christ and them leading their other friends to the Lord. And it's really almost at a pinnacle, like a crescendo of everything that you dream about that had really started kind of at ground zero. Because when we got to Oregon, to our understanding, there was nothing going on spiritually within the athletic department. And so we were able to see something from birth to good fruit going on. It was really fun. But I came to some of the regional director meetings and I found out that the guy that was doing the Southeastern schools, Ricky Stark, was going to transition to some pastoral ministry, I think, and he was going to leave. And that kind of planted the seed my wife's always been homesick to get back home to family. And even though things have gone amazing out in Oregon and we were able to establish our own family culture and just being out of the Southeast and being in the Northwest, we were able to experience a lot of things that we wouldn't have. I think there was a draw to get back home.
Yeah.
And so I told the AIA staff, hey, I would love to take over the SEC schools if somebody else can handle the Pacific Northwest and the West schools, and we'll just transition kind of seamlessly. And it was funny because I didn't even involve my wife in the decision. I don't know if you knew that or not. Yeah, usually you would hey, guess what I heard at the meetings? Hey, I'm kind of praying and thinking about this. What do you think? And instead, I knew what her answer would be. It would be a resounding yes. I hate to leave my girls I'm discipling here, but yeah, I'd love to go home.
Yeah.
Our kids are little. They could make the transition easier now than they will later on. And so I made the decision, pulled the trigger on it. And then one night I woke my wife up and I had some huge poster of the state of Alabama with a star that said, "You are here." And I played Sweet Home Alabama really loud on her little boombox. And she woke up and said, "What are you doing? Like, you're crazy. What's happening?" It was like, she's like, "Oh, we get to go visit home." I was like, "No, we're moving home." And she broke into tears and we moved back to Alabama.
Man. You didn't sing Sweet Home Alabama. You just couldn't play right. I just let Leonard Skinner rip it as loud as they could. So after, so you moved back to Birmingham. What year was that?
That was, oh man, that was 2001.
Yeah.
So we moved home and 9/11 hit within a month, which we were very thankful not to be across the country, but to be home because there was all that uncertainty. And after that, we had a family tragedy. And then my dad died a couple of months after that at 67 years old. And there was just all these reasons that we went, "Lord, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your timing of bringing us home to go through a lot of stuff when our family needed us." And just much better feeling. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
So you take on that, you're home. What else is it looking like? Your kids are getting a little bit older. You guys sort of transition, still part of outdoor activities. You take on some additional work responsibilities. Now you're sort of mid 40s. What's it look like a little bit for you to move back? Your father passes away. You begin to sort of enter into different stages of your life. When parents start passing away, the realness of you becoming maybe an adult. Now you're
I'm supposed to act like an adult.
I'm supposed to act like an adult now. My parents, my father has passed away. Any significant life lessons that you might have learned that you're willing to share with the audience of like, hey, my father passed. Did that wake you up a little bit? Did that change the dynamic of who Dusty Davis was as a man at that point in your life? Do you remember that at all?
I think so. It comes in little bits and pieces over time, but I think I started to carry that mantle of I need to be a leader for my mom, maybe step it up with my siblings, take on a greater role, in our church with the influences with our children, and just, yeah, quit doinking around and, being kind of punky and selfish and just seeking fun, thrill, adventures all the time and go, "No, I need to be a leader."
I think,
And,
the reason I asked that question,
responsible.
yeah, the reason I asked that question is because I think sometimes it's easy for us guys, men, if we have an existing male or a leader, teammate, boss, another guy in position of authority, for them to let them handle the responsibilities and not be willing to offer ourselves to assist. Like dudes don't typically be intentional, like, I don't know, go in your boss. Is there something else that I could help you with?
Yeah.
So you don't have to have so many responsibilities.
Right.
You don't typically go to your father and say, hey, Dad, is there something else that I could alleviate, take off your plate of responsibilities to make your job easy? You go to your church. Hey, fellas, is there something else that I can take off of y'all's area of responsibilities that might make y'all's life less busy? Right? Dudes just don't typically think that way.
Yeah.
Until like, okay, then all those responsibilities that were carried by that individual now have to be picked up. And I think sometimes what I'm trying to have a conversation about is I think that puts sometimes us, you're always playing catch up. Like in pool, the cue ball is always behind the 8 ball, right? If your father passes away and you haven't had a conversation about what his responsibilities are, you're always catching back up to find out what his responsibilities were, what he was responsible of. And I think that's something that we should change, is we should be intentional to have conversations with those guys, people in authority over us, One, to ask them, can we assist? And then two, to say, hey, you sort of have a better understanding of how the family dynamics operate if something does happen. Right?
Yeah. Another thing I love about the ministry that you have here, you're making some pragmatic, practical skills that lead an adolescent into that kind of manhood. If your dad dies suddenly, you need to learn what maintenance needs to be done to the house.
Correct.
You need to learn how to take care of your home. You need to learn where were the finances? Where are they now? Where do I need to provide for the future for my family? Is there a plan in place? Yeah, that's a lot of stuff, and you need to know now so that you're not just blindsided and overwhelmed.
Correct. And I think that's part of we need to improve on bringing other people up to speed, right? I know that for you and me personally, this is not a Jim and Dusty moment to gloat. We're not gloating. We're trying to have a conversation that somebody else might glean some principles from our lives and our conversation so they can apply it to their lives so they can benefit. So like what Dr. Buck told you guys, like that's what we're doing here. But like when you father your children and you bring them involved and you bring them up to speed and you allow them to participate, when you create a family culture where you make decisions, the family unit is up to speed or at least making an effort of making an attempt of getting closer up to speed. Like your family, like the metaphor of your family cycling together, the Peloton. If everybody's running the same cadence and everybody's keeping up, that's the rhythm of the group. Why do we always, not always, my concern is unless men change it, there's going to be a differentiation between allowing others to run at different cadences. And then all of a sudden, like I was telling this story earlier, it takes a tremendous effort to change your cadence to put yourself in the front. And you might find yourself smoked like I did because you're unaware of what effort and it takes to keep the cadence, right? And you're just totally unprepared for it. I think we need to change about how we do that. That's why I'm asking you, like, what was it like, in your experience to see your father pass away when you moved back over and you started taking on sort of this different set of responsibilities that I know, because I know you, that you began to take on the next 25 or 30 years that you take on. Like, do you think it would have been helpful for you to find out earlier and some of those things, Dusty?
I'm sure, yeah, I think you can get wading in the waters can get a little muddy and
Yeah.
just decision making, paralysis of analysis. And,
Yeah.
there's just a lot of decisions you have to make as a man. Do I need to spend $20,000 on a new roof for mom's house now or later? Or how do I, just navigating a lot of decisions.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You feel the weightiness of that. And if I think it's important for us men to have and to participate in some of those decisions at a younger age.
Yeah.
That better prepares us for those times.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's like, man, the stress, I'm not sure. I don't know what the right decision is. Yeah.
I like the way Jeff Struker handled this subject and talking about raising his sons. And he's like, my son's ready to get married at 20.
Yep.
He knows he's had this responsibility of all this already. We worked through this. We're not living in this new culture of you don't grow up till you're 35.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
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 All right. So you move back to Birmingham. Keep walking us through a little bit of like, what do you find yourself doing at your young 40s? You're living in Birmingham. You're back home, if you will. Father's passed away. What are some major milestones in your life during that period of time?
Yeah, I think that one of them was that I had moved into leadership with the sports ministry and things, technology, maybe I'm old school, had become a lot more emails to return and conference calls and other stuff. And I was like, that's not really me. And so I started gravitating towards the local university, University of Alabama at Birmingham. And I was just like, I really miss grassroots ministry, meeting with guys, walking through hardships with them, an ACL injury, whatever it is, just day to day evangelism and discipleship. And so I worked out where I dropped doing all the regional director stuff and started back with good old grassroots ministry,
Yeah.
working on campus, working with coaches.
Yeah.
And loved it and just really flourished at that for a while too. So
Do you feel like there was in your brain like sort of a distinction between not necessarily activity and sort of getting your hands dirty, but like boots on the ground? Like, let me phrase it to you this way. The difference between being on the bike or coaching somebody, is that sort of a competitor? You actually want to be doing it. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Like, walk us through a little bit on that. Like, it's okay to be that way, but was that sort of like you wanted to be in the race?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it's one thing to help tell somebody how to lead a small group. It's another thing to be leading the small group.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah.
Yep.
And seeing that life change come into somebody's eyes,
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. So you're back on campus and then sort of keep walking us through, like, what's it look like? You're back at the University of Alabama at Birmingham and your kids are getting older. They're growing up and in school.
Yeah.
And like, is life as crazy as Birmingham as it was in Oregon? Or do you feel like things are slowing down for you or just accelerating?
It sped up, especially through the young kid years,
Yeah. Yeah.
just like with you and your daughters and sports and social activities
driving.
and yeah, driving and car insurance and just all of those things kind of added up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So, any sort of like major life lessons that you could share with the listeners of maybe the teenage years of corralling, parenting, leading, participating with
Yeah.
teenage children? Like,
I think there again, instead of our kids going to hang out at somebody else's house where we didn't know what was going on, we tried to make our house have food and fun, and we would have social stuff going on, and yeah, skateboards and bikes and motorcycles, and having some toys around to play with. We involved our kids in the ministry. If we were going to have a grill out for the football team, then our kids were on the grill and they were working it and they were putting cheese on the buns and handing out ketchup and mustard and making it happen.
Yep.
And so we didn't divorce ministry from family life. They were all lumped in together.
yeah, smart.
In fact, this week, the guy that took over the ministry at the University of Oregon came to visit me and spend a few days here because he had a conference to come to that was at Auburn, held at Auburn. And he recalled how our kids were so plugged into the ministry, and now he has young kids and he's wanting to do the same and make sure his whole family's involved. And it's a team effort on everything. And we recalled a bunch of great old memories, like when we went and climbed Mount Kilimanjaro together. And he was a wrestler at Oregon, and it was a really amazing week spent with him.
Didn't you take him on a wrestling? Didn't y'all go overseas wrestling or something?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I thought I remember that.
yeah. We've been to Mongolia. We've been all around the world, man.
Yeah. There'll need to be probably some additional podcasts for Dusty's stories. I know that it's been a minute since you've recorded some podcasts on Adventure Cross, right?
Mhm.
But there are some episodes that Dusty recorded with his family. He's talking about how involving his family. His family produced a podcast called Adventure Cross, and you can find it still. I think it's still on the web.
Should be on Spotify.
Yeah, Spotify.
Podcast.
Adventure Cross.
Yeah.
Adventure Cross, and you'll find a couple stories that Dusty shares, and they're very good stories.
Oh, good.
And I'm sure we could basically get into many, many of those stories, but like you said, just casually, I climbed Kilimanjaro, I went to Mongolia, I went here, I went there. Okay, I carried the Olympic torch. All right, so raising teenagers, and then sort of like walking through a little bit more of like, at some point, your children sort of graduate, right, and sort of move out, were there any significant changes or events or the things in your mind that you recall like difficulty as a man of seeing some of your children sort of leave the nest, if you will?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, our three children, like most people's, have very different personalities and different things they enjoy, but then a lot of commonality at the same time. And we took a little different approach with our kids. We didn't push them straight to college. We gave them some options and said, I think it'd be great if you went at some point, but here's what we have to offer you. And I think we had worked with freshmen so many years and just seen them go off the rails and do well spiritually all through high school and nurtured, and then just go kind of the wheels fall off. Yeah. And so all three of our kids went on a mission with Youth with a Mission, YWAM. YWAM's it's a unique organization. Some of them are a little cultish, some of them are real strong bents in other ways. But one thing they do really well is they have adventures in wild places around the world, and they're very evangelistically driven. And so all three of our kids, two went to New Zealand and did like snowboard mission stuff. One of them went to Thailand and in Asia and did backpacking and all kind of, ministry stuff there. It was a great transition for them from high school to autonomy to still growing in their personal walk with the Lord.
That's right.
And so those were, yeah, and those really helped shape our kids too. And especially going into third world nations, took that privileged mentality, because in Birmingham, we lived in a nicer area of town and, there were a lot of affluent people around and kind of the country club culture and, oh, our family's going to our beach house this weekend kind of stuff. And who's driving what, and all that stuff was real important. And so for our kids to immediately go to immersion in a third world culture and see starving kids and stuff was, I think, very valuable for them.
Yeah, right on. So, sort of trying to move this thing a little bit longer, maybe closer to not a conclusion, but sort of a head on calling the meeting. Like, I want you, if you're willing, to talk a little bit about husbanding and fathering. If there's somebody that's listening or viewing, I want them, because I know you're an outstanding husband and you're an outstanding father. I haven't seen you as much on grandfathering, although you share a lot of pictures, and I know that you're very heavily involved. And I could probably draw the same conclusion based upon what I've observed through your pictures and your demeanor when you're with your grandchildren. But if there's a couple nuggets, let's start first with husbanding.
Mm-hmm.
You've been married what now? 30, 40?
40 something. Maybe it's
Okay. Over 40 years you've been married.
Yeah.
What are 1, 2, 3, whatever number of things, truths, nuggets, principles, how would you counsel, advise, encourage somebody that's listening? Like, not the secret, but what should they do?
Yeah.
What are some things that you do well that you'd be willing to tell them if you do this, these would help?
Can't say I do it well, but praying with my wife first crack of daylight in the morning before we get out of bed. We're probably 4 days a week on that.
Yep.
Because some days we just miss.
Yep.
But 4 days a week before our feet hit the ground and when the first light cracks into the room, just saying, okay, Lord, this day is yours. And we'll pray for concern. We'll thank the Lord for massive blessings that he's just showered over us. And I think that keeps us grounded and humbled and knowing that our life is attributed to him. So praying together. If you can't pray with your wife, then there's probably some communication barriers or things that need to be, because praying is vulnerable.
Yep.
And, so anyway.
Yeah, it's good.
Praying with your wife and just being listening and knowing the rhythms of life. Mary Lou's been through injuries. She's been through surgeries. She's been through the loss of her parents. She's been through menopause. She's been through all these different stages of life. And I'm kind of a little more simpleton. I wake up, I pretty much feel the same way every day. My emotions don't swing very high or low. Um, I have simple needs, just kind of, but I know that she's a complex person.
Hmm.
And so listening to her and um, understanding what she's going through, because what she goes through in her emotions and her hormones and her whole life body is so different than what I do. And so being loving and tender and attentive and, she's a great cook. I'm not, but I tell her it's called the walkout principle. She can leave chaos in the kitchen, and I always just give her a walkout policy.
Hmm.
I can put on some music and I can do all the kitchen, take out the trash, clean up the dishes or whatever. And it's not that big a deal. I don't have to get a gold star for doing the total kitchen,
Hmm.
and letting her do the walkout.
Well, like
She loves it. She can go take a bath. She can listen to podcasts, do whatever she needs to do because she created a beautiful meal for the family. And she was
Sandoval.
yeah, on the fallen. It's a bomb too, man. She can use like 6 pots instead of 2. Like something.
You like kind of like to a deep 7 pots.
Yeah,
They're kind of done in it too.
that's right.
Yeah.
So taking care of the little stuff that you know matters. And it's repeated a lot, but the love language thing.
Yeah, right on.
Mary Lou, she needs a shoulder back rub. She needs some attentive in some way. She doesn't need me to buy her gifts. She doesn't want gifts.
Yes.
She doesn't want, other stuff.
Yeah.
So learning love language.
Do you feel like it's maybe it's not the appropriate wording, but not working at it, but serving our wives requires effort.
Yeah.
And you're
Attentiveness.
and there's a willingness to put in the required investment
Yeah.
through the effort, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of what I'm gathering is
And normally our love language isn't what our wife's is. And so you're going against the flow of what, I used to think that cleaning out my wife's car, vacuuming out, detailing it and everything would be like a win for her.
Yep.
She could care less. She actually wants some of the mess because she wants a jacket to go into the grocery store because it's cold and she likes it, and so I've got to twist the dial and be a student of her because what I like is not what she likes.
well, that's good. Appreciate you sharing that. What about for parenting, fathering?
Yeah.
What are a couple, 2, 3 nuggets that you feel like you've done well, or you've made an effort to do well that have helped, and you want to, looking back, that you would put more investment into? And
Yeah. Same kind of thing with your wife. It's learning the keys that unlock the hearts of your children. And my daughter is very verbal and emotionally based and wants to talk things through. She wants to verbally process. She's sensitive to beautiful things. And so I want to, if I find a really pretty worship song or something, I send it to her. I send her a verse. I ask how she's doing in certain aspects of her life and want to be focused, make sure my phone's not kind of in my hand over here at the same time. I want to be attentive to her in that way. And she likes to spend time doing adventure stuff together. My youngest son is tangible, hands-on. He wants to talk about the next move and the remodel he's working on. He wants me to work side by side with him. He wants me to go to Home Depot and dig into the plumbing aisle or the electrical aisle with him, ad nauseum. He wants to work side by side. He doesn't want to talk about his emotions.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to talk about his feelings. He doesn't know how to process them that well. And so I don't push him into that corner. I leave it open, but I listen. I want to enjoy what he enjoys and partner and team up with him and be a I want to bolster what he's got going on and be a supporter, financially help him
Yeah.
kickstart things, whatever, his business and stuff. He didn't want to talk about how he feels about something. I'm good with it. If it comes up, great. I'm not going to push him into a corner with it.
Yeah.
Oldest son has different needs too. So it's learning to listen to unlock. I'm sure your daughters are, some ways similar, but some ways very different too. And so you got to unlock the key that holds their heart.
Yeah, I think that what I'm gathering from the answer is put in the effort to listen, to be attentive, to observe, to invest, to watch, you can't just be idle and think that you're going to do it well. And you can't, as you said earlier in the podcast, you can't come in on Hot Wheels, literally Hot Wheels, and simply think that you're going to come in and do it well. I find it somewhat interesting for me as I'm processing as I'm saying this, that I think sometimes there is a lot of pride in us that we want to immediately walk in and sort of command people's presence because we have a title or of a position. And I don't think so. I think people respect behavior, and they trust is something that has to be built over time. And I've been thinking a lot about that privately, about how long it takes to build someone's trust, and how one moment of unrestraint can it's done.
Grab those words. You just can't get them back in.
They're done, right? And it's gone. Once you violated somebody's trust and their belief in that trust, it's never coming back, and how I think a lot of guys, we just think that we can just roll in and immediately everyone's just gonna not cower, but you got this position, and I don't think men operate that way. And I was just curious to hear what you said as a father, because I think fathering boys and girls is different. Interacting with people, it is different. And the reason I was bringing that up, Dusty, is, as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, in Men Build Men, we're trying to offer some procedures. And one of those procedures is to try to make an introduction to a stranger. And to be intentional to making introduction to somebody, I think requires the willingness, like you said, to listen and to not be about our agenda. Like a real world experience, and for me, that I'm trying to improve on is, if I fill up at a Quick Trip or racetrack, which I tend to frequent those gas stations more often, I'm often in close proximity with people that I've never met, and I have no idea who they are. And if I'm so concerned about moving on to accomplish my agenda, no wonder I'm willing to inconvenience myself or introduce myself or listen. Like, what's the key to husbanding? What's the key to father? You just said listen. It takes time. It takes effort. If I can't even listen to a stranger's name or where he's from, then I have no regard for that person. You're about your own agenda. And God forbid us from being the type of husbands and fathers that we would not listen to our wives, our children. So I appreciate you counseling us and advising us to do so, anything else that you want to sort of deliver to the audience in terms of some things that they might want to do well?
I think if I'm listening to the Lord, then he's giving my marching orders, and I'm able to listen to the other people that he puts in my life.
Right on.
It's kind of simple, but
Yeah.
If I'm not listening to the Lord, then I'm going to gravitate more to just Dusty Davis life.
Yep.
And then I'll be about me and my agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend you find Dusty on social media, connect with him, Strava, Dusty_Davis on his Instagram account. You can follow him as he continues at 63 to make a competitive effort to whoop dudes 40 and 50 years younger in his athletic pursuits. I know that Dusty, like, I'm thankful that one, you're in my life and you're still in my life, and that you're currently advising at Men Build Men in our organization as an advisory level. And I want to say thank you for that. I trust
It's a privilege.
Yeah, dude. And I'm super, super thankful for that. And I'm thankful that you've taken some time to come over here and say these things. So
Wouldn't miss it.
until we talk again, later.